one last point about last week's topic, which somebody pointed out to me after I spoke last week. Last week we spoke a little bit about the conservative Psak Halacha from 1950 that one is permitted to drive to the synagogue on Shabbos. And we pointed out various different fallacies and why this cannot be considered within the category of Elu Velu Divrei Elokim Chaim. But somebody pointed out to me afterwards that there's a very basic flaw in the tshuva, which is actually apikarsus. The basic flaw in the tshuva, which besides being halachically incorrect as apikarsus, is that one of the rationales that they used in order to permit driving to shul on Shabbos is the fact that at the time when the Torah was given, nobody engaged in combustion for the purpose of power. So its combustion is always only for the purpose of heat, never for the purpose of power, and therefore it was not something which the Torah banned. Now, of course, we said last week that power and heat are synonymous, right? You only have heat, especially when New Testament base, New Testament Aleph. Just find it. Okay, Micadone, which is right at the top of New Testament Aleph. Yeah, Micadone. You have something else? Micadone.
Oh.
Mikadon.
Okay.
No, that's not it, is it? Yeah, 2 lines below that. Mikadon there, yeah. Mikadon. Okay, what are we talking about? Kish nit kan ruvel shokri. We're talking about a case when the majority of the not Micadome, sorry. Okay. Micadome, talking about where the majority of the pile was rectified already. So now he erases the next 5 words. So plukta. It says, no, that can't be what it's talking about. If we're talking, that's what it's talking about, where when a majority of the Kri was already rectified, then that gives you a plukta de chiskin Rabbi Yochanan. We have chokas chiskin Rabbi Yochanan. The Itmar, we learned, Reshlokish Chizki Amar Tevel Bata Barov. In that case, if you already were mafresh Trumas Samaisis on the majority of the container, so the rest of the container is Bata Barov, or the rest of the pile is Bata Barov. In other words, the rest of it, which is Tevel, is Batel. Rabbi Yochanan, Amar Rabbi Yochanan says, Eina Tevel Bata Barov. Tevel is not Bata Barov. Meaning, even if you're mafresh Trumas Samaisis on part of the container, and now the majority of the container is already meiser, that doesn't cancel, it doesn't absorb, it doesn't nullify the rest of the container. Okay? It's a big machlok, it's very fundamental. According to Rabbi Yochanan, our mission is only talking about where you took up Trumas Maisis a minority. Now you took up Trumas Maisis on a majority. Took up Trumas Maisis majority, then the whole thing is already fixed, or by virtue of it being brought to Barov. Now we're talking about min b'mino. So min b'mino is either not bought to Be'elef or it's bought to Barov, and here it's bought to Barov. Okay? V'yisabo meimar ba'adah. It's an interesting point. That this, I don't think Rabbi Yochanan are arguing in the concept of min b'mino batel. They both seem to hold that this min b'mino is batel. So this would tend to be like Rabbanan arguing Rabbi Huda and the Bavli, who said min b'mino is batel, not like Rabbanan, who like Rabbi Huda says min b'mino is not batel. Okay, v'yisabo meimar ba'adah. If someone wanted to say that this statement is going on, on the following brisa. The Tanya Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov, Rabbi Elazar Yaakov says, "Eino moti lo v'lo makom acher." The truth is that you can't. Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov holds ein breira, and therefore you cannot do this two-stage Trumas Maisis taking. You can't do it. You have to take everything out at once. You didn't take everything out at once, it doesn't work. Trumas Maisis doesn't work at all because of ein breira. It's either at the time or not at all, but there's no such thing as retroactively determining what the Trumas Maisis are going on. Now, According to Sir Lesman Yaakov, Ad Kidun Lo Nidka Ruba Shokri. That's only talking about where where you didn't do yet the majority of the vessel. Nidka Ruba Shokri. What if you did do the majority of the vessel? So then, is that sufficient? In other words, the way I say the rest is Bata Barov. So although the Gemara doesn't discuss this problem, the Kavanaghi says, I'm bothered by the fact that it's Baki Barov. Really, the Gemara is bothered by the fact that it should be Bata Barov. Because the truth is, if you say that the Tevel is Batel in the majority, which is already Mesukan, then in essence what you're doing is being Goizel the Shevet. You're not giving the Kohanim their due, right? Because you're robbing them out of the Trumas and Mises on the rest of the Kree, right? So, what do you do in that case? So Yevel Kado, let's not like the following case. Hailfon of Shnei Karim. If you had in front of you two containers, Me'achad Yivishmenu Mikzos Truma Meiser, from one of which you took part of the Truma Meiser, Umina Acher Yivishmenu Mikzos Truma Meiser, from the other one you took also part of his Truma Meisers, Ma'oshi Truma Mizel, you're allowed to take Truma from one and the other. B'shalom Talmid Rabbi Chia Rabba, and the Talmid Rabbi Chia, the great, asked Rabbi Chia Rabba, Varmalon, he said to them, Haksil Chayvik is the other, we had this quote already before, a fool folds his arms, and consumes its flesh. Meaning that you should have learned this already. Because Rabbi Lezer, the name Rabbi Chia the Great, ain't Tarin Lo Masim Mizelza. There is no way to do it. In other words, you can't. This whole two-stage process thing doesn't work. Two-stage process assumes that there's a brera. In other words, I can be marfish part of it and say, well, and then I come back and I say, well, that which I was marfish originally was on this portion, and now the subsequent portion I'm going to take is not already Mesukan, but rather it's Tevel. And there's Breira, say retroactively, whatever I take the second time around was clarified that originally it was always Tevel from the get-go. That's Breira, that doesn't work, ain't Breira. So therefore, since we pass ain't Breira, anytime you take a partial Trumas Meisers, the whole thing is null and void. You have to go back to the beginning and start over again because of the concept of ain't Breira. Okay? Says the Mishnah further. Halacha base. Mishu Peloisa b'Megula. Somebody whose fruit was in a silo. V'nasan Sela ben Levi. You gave a measure to a Levite for Meiser Rishon. V'Seilani and a measure to an Ani for Meiser Sheni. Marfishat Shmoina Seim v'Ochin. Now, Koran Meir holds Yesh Breira. So you can continuously eat up to another 80%, right? This is your 20%, Meiser Rishon, Meiser Ani. So you can eat up to 8 sa'in, you can separate 8 sa'in and oil them as the designated stuff, which you say that Meiser as rectified. Chachamim says you can't do it until you make a rectify at the entire pile. You can't say, well, I'll take 2 now, and I'll eat 8 corresponding then, and leave the rest of the pile from later. No, you have to eat mafresh on the entire pile. Yeah, Rameir holds you have to say Ishbira. That's Rameir. Right, that's essential. Now, says the Gemara, Rabbi Lezer Shariach says, also, Kepoel Sheno Mami L'Baal Bayis. He holds that Rameir's halacha is just like a worker who doesn't believe the Baal Bayis, and the Baal Bayis says, I'll give you X amount of grain to support you while you're doing work for me, but the Baal Bayis is choshen not to take of Trumas U'Maisers, so the Pohel gives his own for the Baal Bayis, which may work. But here he's saying the Rameir's halacha is similar to this. Says in what Pshita Hadamilsa. This is obvious to us. Nisrafu Apeiros. What if the fruit has gotten burnt up? So in other words, you never got to eat the eight seam which you wanted to designate. So retroactively, even though the truma still is extant, the truma is null and void. A truma betivla, because in order for the truma to work, you have to have designated the 8 se'in which were being rectified, so that the rectification on them should work. So even if the truma is still extant, as long as the rest of the pile is up in smoke, so you can't do prayer on that. Even Rameir agrees you can't do prayer in that case, because there's no way that for this to set aside the 8 sin, which will have fixed the 2 sin as truma, because the 8 sin are all gone. They went up in smoke. However, the corollary of that, nisrfa truma, what if the truma burnt? That's okay. Because then when you eat the fruit which is remaining, then retroactively whatever you took off its truma is sanctified. So that's okay. Okay? Even though the truma is no longer here, that doesn't matter. Because that means that at that point in the past when the truma did exist, since Yesh Breira, it was valid truma.
It seems strange that you have to have errors that are being rectified, and they have to...
It's counterintuitive, but it's logical. Do you understand why it's logical?
No.
Okay. Again, if we have to separate, see, we're so inundated with the concept that there ain't Breira, so it's hard for us to really think about how Breira works. But the way Breira works is that even if it's no longer Ba'ilam. It's interesting, our mayor's one holds you can be mocked the Davar Shlo Bololo. Okay, so Davar Shlo Bololo, and he's the one who holds your Eish Breira. So it doesn't have to be Ba'ilam at all, that's not relevant, right? What it has to be is that, although to use a brisker term, although the Chalais didn't take place properly at the time, later on I can fix that Chalais by some subsequent activity. But where the rest of the chulin was burnt up, there's no way to fix it later on, because the subsequent activity on which the prior chalos is contingent is the designation of that which is going to being rectified, and that cannot be designated because that burnt up.
What happens to this truma?
It's chulin. It's tevel. Goes back to its tevel. It's completely tevel. But if on the other hand, it's not the tevel which burnt, but the truma which burnt, so the chalois can be rectified later on, even though it's no longer ba'ilam, that doesn't bother us. The chalois can be rectified later on by fixing what in this pile will actually be that which is rectified. Okay? Now again, this whole Gemara, halacha Beis, Mishnah Gemara, is not true the way we paskin, since we paskin named Breira. So therefore, in order for any of this to work, the truma must be extant, and the stuff which is rectified must be extant, everything must be around. Okay? Halacha Gimel. Shiur truma, the measure of truma. Ein Yofef, one is doing it with a nice eye, to magnanimous, Mercham Me'arboim, Achas Me'arboim, 1/40. Beisham Ermim, Achas Mishloshim, 1/30. Habeinonis, an average person according to Beis Hillel is Chamishim. According to Beis Shammai, it's 1/40. Varoa, a miser skinflint, is 1/6 Mishishim. According to Beis Shammai, 1/50. What if you took truma and you wanted to be an average person, or maybe even a good person, but you happen to come up with 1/60 truma? It's okay, it is truma, sufficiently truma. Veitzo truma, you don't have to turn again. Chazavos, if you did add on again, so chayav meiser, whatever you added on is not bona fide truma, and therefore you have to give meiser on it. Okay. However, if you only picked up the first time 1/61st, less than even the miser shiur truma, then that what you picked up is truma. But then he should continue to make a truma over again, continue to separate truma until he gets up to what he normally gives. B'midah mishka, meaning when you take truma, you can only take it by a guesstimate, not by measure. But here where you're adding on, right, you already took the initial one without measure, then you're adding on, then you can do b'midah mishka minyan, by weight, by measure, and by count. And aflo min hamukaf, Rabbi Yehuda says, when you go later on, when you take off later on, it can even be, it's so much not truma. When you're making it up, then not only can you weigh it or whatever it, but you can also take shlom min hamukaf. It doesn't have to be together with the fruit on which it is being rectified. Okay. Let us see the Gemara. How do we know the shiur of the 60th? Ksiv, it says in Yirmiyah that the truma is shishis ha'efa, 1/6 of an ephah, which is mechomer chitim, where the ephah is 1/10 of a chomer of chitim. So 1/6 times 1/10 equals 1/60. Okay, a shishis of an ephah, that's 1/60 of a chomer. The shishisem oifer, Vishishisim, I guess is the proper way to read it in the context of the Gemara. And you should double that Michaymer Sorim when you're giving Chaymer Sorim. So of course times 2, 1/60th times 2 is 1/30th. That's how Beis Shammai got their sheet of 1/30th. That's Beis Shammai. Yeah, but I'm not sure if the Gemara really wants to give a pasuk for Beis Shammai.
If that was so, it could even be Mishnah.
Oh, okay, that's Gemara's next question. That's right. So if that's the case, by wheat you go 1/60th, and by barley, sounds really like Beis Shammai to a certain extent, but only by barley. So is that how we say? Tam lover chol trumas kol. It's a pasuk says all trumas all. Shu kol trumas shavas, all trumas are equivalent. Therefore, if the minimum which we find is 1/60th, that applies to all of them. Okay, so this is taka like Beis Hillel. Shmuel gives it this slightly different interpretation. Tain shishisam. Add on the shishis to the shishisam. So you have 1/30th plus with 1/60th over the course of 2 ephos, because two chomers, right? Because it says beginning of the pasuk shishi sefer mi chomer achitim, and then it says the end of the pasuk shishisam ephah mi chomer asorim. So therefore, I have 2 chomorim, for one of which I took a 60th, and the other from which I took a 30th. So 1/60th and 1/3 plus 1/30th is 1/20th. Trust me on that. So 1/20th over, but that's 1/20th over 2 chomer instead of 1, so it's 1/40th. Okay, so that's how you got to the 1/40th. How do we know the Beinonis gives 1/50th? Rabbi Levi from the half of the Jews who went out to war against Midian at the end of Sefer Bamidbar. You take 1% of 50, which means 2%. It means 1/50th. Anything you seize, meaning truma, any place else, says like this. Just like this is 1/50th. So to that which you seize in any other location, is also 1/50th. How do I know that if you're a skinflint, that's 1/60th? Like we learned previously. Beis Shammai says 1/30th. How they learn their shita? It says because it says at the end of the pasuk that it's that by Sorim it's double, meaning that it's 1/30th. That's how they learn it out. Beinonis me'arboim. Beinonis is 40 because we go ratchet up a level. The Shmuel from that Beinonis is arboim minhad the Shmuel from that which Shmuel said. What did Shmuel say? That you add on the 6 to the third the 60th to the 30th, and then you get a 1/40th. 1/40th. Yeah. And then Vara Michamishim, and that which the least good is 1/50th. That's mean Hadad Rabbi Levi. From Rabbi Levi said that we learn out from the pasuk of Bamidbar. Amar Rabbi Levi said, "Call Mutzi Masrei so kitikdon." Anybody takes off his meiser as is proper and warranted, and on mafsi klum from theological perspective, he doesn't lose the thing. My time of pasuk teaches us this: "V'asir sachomer ephah," the 10th of the chomer, which is an ephah, which means 1/10, which is meiser. Ela chomer matkuna so. So we learned that too. The material, it will go back in its form, meaning that the stuff which is taken is going to go back, and that's a drasha and a gadata type thing to make you encouraged to take off meiser kedin. Okay? Lo tzurcha dila. It says more. I don't have a question, but only this one. Kimbad. I mean, is it like we say Tarn v'ola b'yado echad mishishim. If a person took truma, he only got a 60th. Truma ve'ena tzarech truma. Truma does not take truma again. Came Beishamai Amrin Sota Beishamai says Tarn v'ola b'yado echad michamishim. If you took a truma and you got 1/50th, even though according to Beishamai that's skinflint status, ve'en tzarech truma, you don't have to go back. You do not have to go back and take truma again. Or do I say since Beishamai is more stringent than Shurim, they're more stringent and make you repeat the activity as well. And the question just dangles there. It's not answered. Okay? We don't know if Beishamai is the most stringent area or not. Chidabasi said, now I don't understand this paragraph. Well, what exactly a chiddush here is here? Chidabasi lo tani bar kapar ela toram v'ola b'yodam me'echad b'yodam mechamishim achishim. That what she said. He doesn't have to go back. It's between a 50th and a 60th. In all these cases, truma made tzarech li'trum. In this case, it was valid truma. You don't have to take truma over again. So it sounds like if it's one, let's say. 149th or so, whatever. In that case. Still not sure what he's being mechadish. Yeah. Don't have to go back and do it again because that's sufficiently close to the ballpark. Yes, I know why it picks up 50 and 6. Kavanoki tries to explain it, but I didn't understand why. All right. Chazav Osif, I mean, that's partially chor. I don't know what Rabbi Chanina is adding, but he's adding something which I don't understand. Chazav Osif, I mean, I understand what he's saying, I just don't understand what he's adding. Chazav Osif, Chayav Maisus, if you add it on more than you had to, then you have to take off Maiser of that which you add on. Rabbi Yasser Rabbi Yon said that Toim Miskav and Leaf Torres Kario. That's only where you had in mind to add on more in order to exempt your granary, and he wanted to make it part of the original truma. But if you didn't add it on in order to exempt your granary, if you didn't add it on as additional meiser. For magnanimous reasons, it should be nice to go in. Then you can even do one-on-one. One-on-one means you can do truma and chulin in a ratio of 1 to 1. No, it's normally truma is a ratio of 1 to 50th, 1 to 60th. If you didn't intend to do it over again for the purpose of exempting, yeah, okay, I got it now. If you did it over again, you did it 60th the first time, and then you decide to do it again anyway. So whatever you're mavish now, it's chayiv and maestros. You shouldn't have done it over again. You already mavish enough. It was a minimum, but you're mavish enough. So you have to whatever you do is chayiv and maestros. And wherever that's only where you had in mind to add on to exempt further. But let's say you had a large batch of truma to begin with, right? An inordinately large. That's okay. Why is that? Because of what he says here. Because truma has no limit up. As long as you have half chulin and half truma left, that suffices. According to what?
Taking out more truma.
Yeah.
That means you have less meiser here.
Right. Somebody's going to lose out for sure. Right. Yeah, because the Baal boss is the person who's in charge of that. What? Yeah. Even ultimately the Baal boss decides to give truma of 50% of his crop that works. Obviously 10% of the levy has been diminished to a severe extent. Tough luck. We don't care. Okay? Kahana says another interpretation. That Rabbi Yochanan made a statement that Miskam Liftoris Kerio, Avlei Miskam Liftoris Kerio, Afil Achas Al Achas is going on the Sefer of the Mishnah. So where it says Kamoshu Lamud, that he took off in that case less than the 60th or 61st. No, the opposite. Until now, I tell you about. The Reish is talking about a case where he took out to begin with the 61st, and now he wants to tack on. No, that's why I was right the first time. The Reish is talking about a case he took off his 60th to begin with, and now he wants to tack on. Right? So now we said you want to tack on. It's whatever you're taking off now is Chayiv and Maisrus. The Sefer is talking about a case where he didn't take off enough originally. Meaning anything is enough to write some. He didn't take off what he normally takes off. So now he wants to take off Kamoshu Lovmud. To the extent that he normally takes off. On that, Rabbi Yochanan, Afilu Achas Al Achas, Gezuntate, you can continue to do it. Even to 1-on-1 ratio. As Marcus says, what Nina Kamoshu Lovmud. You can only go up to what you normally do, not above that. Says Marno Shelo Lifchos. That we don't want you to give less than you normally give. But Avada you can give more than you normally give. Lezer Merkamoshula Amud B'mida. Lezer says, no, this is what we mean to say. To get up to the shiur which you normally give, that you can even measure. In the Skavin Lahosif Nami, and then if you want to add on, you're allowed to add on even with a midah, even with a measurement, even with a scale or whatever.
So the first time around he took out.
You can't take it with a scale the first time.
The first time around he did not do
a good job.
It was not even 160.
No. In the Sefer it's not even 1/60th. So that's it goes out to commercial limit. Again, let me read it over again. In that case, you can even go up to, even if you didn't take up originally what you normally do, so when you come back and start over again, you take up to as even 1-on-1 ratio, and that's good enough. As where I can say it, you can only go up to what you normally give. Says more, no, Shelo Livchos, you shouldn't give less than that, but you can give more than that. To get up to where you normally get up to the midah, that you can do even by weight. And if you intend yeah, that if you intend to add on to that, then even that you can do b'midah. Why? Because then I say the whole reason why you're normally not supposed to give by measure is they're afraid you're going to give a limited amount. So if we want you to err on the side of giving more. But here, anyway, you're going to give more than you did to begin with, and therefore we're assuming you're going to give much more, than your hektish or the quantum I should just stand to gain by your measuring. So we never allow you to measure. Yes, just short form. Okay, so that's what the Sefer is telling us, that you can even go up further, and you can even go up further using a balance, scales. Rabbi Yochanan says, "Rish Lakish ba kol Rabbi Yochanan, Rish Lakish that's far Rabbi Yochanan." Tosefes truma mai. What's the status of Tosefes truma? In other words, does it require maisus or not? The second time around. I learned it in the name of a single individual, not Rabbana. So what do you mean to say? Ma. L'chiyuv is going to the ratio. The ratio said if you already took off 60 then you had, then whatever you had the second time is chayiv and trumas u'maisos. Oh, Lifta Peter is going on the Sefer, and the Sefer said that whatever you had on the second time, since you started with less than the 60th, you started with the 61st, so whatever you had on is exempt for trumas u'maisos. So item l'chiyuv, if you're going to say it's going on the ratio, would say you're chayiv to tack on trumas u'maisos, I say that's a shitas yachid. Nicha, that's good. Which shitas yachid would that be? This is cute. Which shitas yachid is it? I'll give you a hint. Look back in the Mishnah. Look at the last line of the Mishnah. Why Rabbi Yochanan learned that the ratio is going like Rabbi Yehuda? I told your name, but now you have to tell me why. A second, I get another cup of coffee. Really simple. I mean, I don't know if I would have got without the Kavanoki either. But Rabbi Yehuda says you can't even do Shalom in Amukov. Right? That means Rabbi Yehuda says this is not really Truma, but we're fooling. So that's why it should be Chayev in Maasros. You see the linkage? The Mishnah itself says Chayev in Maasros. Rabbi Yochanan says that's a Shitas Yochid. What Shitas Yochid is it? It's Rabbi Yehuda. Rabbi Yehuda says later in the Mishnah, this is not Truma. If it would be a real Truma, you would have to dafki mafshir min amukov, right? So if it's mafshir shalom min amukov, that clearly indicates that it's fake Truma. If it's fake Truma, that's a very good reason for it to be Chayev and Maasros. Follows, right? It's easy once you hear it, right? Okay, that's who does he read it down from? He doesn't say who it's from. That's how he says the pshat is, okay? That makes sense. That should be Rabbi Yehuda. But in Tamar Leptur, what about if you say it's going on the Seifa? Then it doesn't work out, because the Seifa says that if you're Mafish 161st the first time, then when you tack on Lichtei Limudo, so then you don't have, then it's exempt from Maasros. So if Rabbi Yochanan means to say that statement in the Seifa is a Shitas Yochid, that's no good, because there Rabbi Yehuda argues, right? Umayin Rabbi Yehuda the Isla Shlomin Amukah Potter. Rabbi Yehuda there argues and says you don't have to do Shlomin Amukah, but nonetheless he says it's Potter. Rabbanan delay slew Shalom Namukah. Rabbanan Hatzin Namukah, meaning that's more similar to Truma. Lo Koshke, they certainly must hold that it's Chayev, that it's exempt from Maasros. In other words, if Rabbi Yehuda again holds it's less like Truma, holds it's exempt from Maasros in that case, certainly Rabbanan in that case are going to hold that right, it's more like Truma. Certainly Kabel Chomer above the Maasros. Okay, so Amar doesn't answer that. Asar Rabbi Yasi came and said B'Shem Rish Lakish, and the name Rish Lakish V'Amar says Tosefes Truma, if you add on to Truma Chayev Maasros. It's Chayev Maasros. Amar Rabbi Yasi said Mishnah Amar came. Mishnah says Amar Rabbi Zira Rabbi Yasi. Rabbi Zira said to Rabbi Yasi, hey Domas Disa, what Mishnah is it? V'lo Akidei. Rabbi Yasi didn't answer. Amar Lei, so Rabbi Yasi said to Rabbi Yasi, Dilma other thing, maybe that what should said in our Mishnah. Toram v'ala biyadu echem mishishim. If you took Truma and you got 1/60th, Truma it is Truma. Teina tzarich litrum, and you have to take Truma off again. Meaning, if you do take Truma off again, what must it be? It's Chayev Meiser. Chayev Meiser, right? So that's a raya. The ratio which says that if you took 1/60th off the first time, then they don't have to take it anymore. It must hold. If you did take any more, it's Chayev Meiser. Says more, no. No proof. No proof in there. But Lotani Allah Chazer V'Yisiv Chayev Meisers. Then we learn over there that specifically in that case, you're Chayev Meisers. Right? Yes, true in that case. But maybe any other case, any other case, you're going to be exempt from Meisers. In other words, maybe specifically over there, where you didn't make it the first time you made it up to a 60th. So then later on, if you add on, it's Chayev Meiser. Because you did make the minimum share the first time. But if you didn't, no, your statement, the statement which Rish Lakish made was a blanket statement. Anytime you're Moisei B'Truma. That we never saw that's true. We never saw in a Mishnah we can sustain that anyway. Now, moving right along in this regard, Akam Ozan pointed to Tiflu Dvartor, Midaraisa, how much you need in order to make Truma. So it says, Rabbi Yonason Amar Echad L'Meir Trumas Meiser. So the Yonason says the shiur the rice for Truma is 1/100, just like Trumas Meiser is 1/100, 1%. Now less than that. Amar Rabbi Yonason. Midman Shmat, from who did you hear this? Amalei, Rabbi Yonason, me people Chavraya Sham Yisrael. I heard from the Shmuz, the people in the base medrash for the Chaverim we're talking and learning. The Beir Rabbi Yadam left even 1 out of 1,000. Ramona lace kan shiura. When it says this way, basket, there's no minimum shear for truma d'oraisa. Why? Reishis to goncha says the beginning of your grain. Afilu koshu, no matter how large or how small the measure is.
There are only a couple isolated instances that I think shears is there such a case?
Benching, Kedei Isurim, Tzayis. Sure.
That doesn't make shears is still also too.
Yeah, but not for Malchus.
Forget Malchus, but
no, it's not.
Where do you find?
It's a big machlokes Rabbi Yochanan Reish Lakish, by the way. Big machlokes Rabbi Yochanan Reish Lakish. Whether the Chatzi Shiz also be the rice or not. It's not so bashut. But Pigul, Nosar, Chometz, and Pesach, all those are ksayis to rice. So it is a shiur to rice. Okay, I look it out. Somebody says to his agent, save a trump, go and take truma. Turk it out, the Baal Bais, this guy, to his term according to the way it's known that the Baal Bais is. He doesn't know if he's a magnanimous person or a miserly person. Turkman is to give the average beta 150th. Piches Asora also, if you add or detract up to a tenth, and we're going to discuss that in great detail in the Gemara. Trumas and Truma, the Truma is valid. If however you knew what the Baal Bais his normal intent is, and you added on or detracted from that, ain't Trumas and Truma, the Truma is not valid Truma. Your shlichus is null and void, the Truma you took off doesn't work, and we go back to square one. Okay? What?
So everything you did was just totally invalid.
Totally invalid. Okay, let's go to the Gemara. Akadung Shamalo Tzei Tchoim Ladaiti. This time where the Baal Bais said, "V'tarim like I would do it." Whether be knows that the Baal Bais would normally do it, but the Baal Bais didn't give a specific instruction to go to do it that way. What's the halach in that case? So Nishmini Me'adol, let's serve in this case. It says in the Mishnah, if you don't know das Baal Bais, then you give average. What's the reason why you give average? Because you don't know. But if you know, even though the Baal Bais didn't tell you, it's as if he told you, and therefore you have to abide by what his das is. Okay, I have a header here. Do you have a header? Do you have on Rabbi Bun? On Rabbi Bun Bakana. This is difficult here. It's not difficult. The Gemara makes it easy, but it doesn't fit into the words of the Gemara. Hapoiches achas me'asora truma. V'amoisev achas me'asora truma. Shliach adds 1/10 or detracts 1/10. That's truma. Now it's important to know. Let's tell you about a case. It's great that the banks still give deposit slips. I don't know what good they do for normal banking, but the way the Grog gives it says it's now it's about a case where you're taking off 1 out of 50. So in that case, we give you the shliach has a leeway to go up, down a tenth, which means either down to 9/10, it's called 0.9, or up a tenth to 1.1, but not greater leeway than that, which is significantly less leeway than a Baal Bais, because the Baal Bais gets between 1/50th and 1/60th, right? Up to 1/60th down, or up to 1/40th up, right? That's a much greater leeway. Without going to the percentages, it's a significantly greater leeway, okay? So it says that's what we're discussing here, right? Chulin means not when the Baal Bais is taking from Chulin. Then it's a much greater leeway. And in that case, furthermore, in both cases true this, that what you add is not similar to that which you detract. Hey Chavida, What do we mean by this? Baal specifically. Have a yolif, in other words, the percentages are different. Here too the percentages are different, but not as recognizably. 0.9 is 90% of 1. And 1.1 is 10%, 110% of 1, right? But this is not really 10% off of 1, the same way this is 10% added on to 1. But here it's even more pronounced, that these are not, 1/16th is different than 1/40th. Now that's what we're about to discuss. If he's normally was about going to take off 1/50th, if he takes off even more 1/40th, so he loses 6/4. Right? It's taken on faith. Even though I don't want to make the math here. If he takes him 1/60th maskerle, he gains arbor of a roving 4/4. So it's a skewed, right? 1/40th is 6/4 more than 1/50th, whereas 1/60th is only 4/4 less than 1/50th. So it's skewed. Even though it sounds symmetrical, it's not really. The mistakes are greater in one direction than the other direction. But be that as it may, by a shliach we give a far looser, smaller margin of error. Why? Because by shliach, if he doesn't adhere to a relatively small window, we say it wasn't mekayim shlichus. Okay, so therefore the shlichus is batel because of that. Okay, is that clear? Okay. If he intentionally add until a ba'abais. 1 second, the ratio he said that if you add on the ba'abais, it's okay. If you're calling the Sefer Amar ain't Trumas or Truma, you say it's not okay. Says more, it's not a kasha. Amar Chena Braid Rav Hilo Kamis Kami Loisiv. The where we say it's ain't Trumas or Truma, we intentionally add on to ba'abais, that's not good. Kamis Kavin Lifchos. Here, Lifchos is lav dafka. It doesn't mean we intentionally intended to detract. Rather, we intended to make it proper. You really should say Kamis Kavin Lahashvos. But since it came after the word lahosiv, so it became livchos. What we really mean is we tried to get it right, and then even if he was off, it's okay. The Rabbi said to the Evid, give the guest 1 steak. V'uamar tolu shtayim, and the Evid says take 2 steaks. Ve'no u'sholosh, and the guest takes 3 steaks. Problem is, it was all kachim. So kulam malu, they're all moya, right? But what did the Evid do? Took 2 over 1. It's a contradiction in our Mishnah. In our Mishnah says if you change from da'asa ba'abais, your shlichus is batel. There it says your shlichus is good. That's why the ba'abais is also moya. Why? Evid is lav dafka. Just that that's okay. I think it's even it's not about shamish there, but that's lav dafka. It can be anybody, any shliach. Okay, so it's a good lamdish kasha. More gives a good lamdish answer. Says the Gemara, here you say that the shlichus is null and void. Normally they said tamon. It's a lamdish answer. Tamon there mechaticha rishoina. In the first piece, Nistaima was focused, not finished, but focused. Shlichusa Shabbat Bais. And that was achieved. Which each piece is independent. But here, here, there is no specific kernel of grain which puts it over the mark, right? Between the 50th and the 60th and the 50th, right? So therefore you cannot say that any specific piece of grain is the one beyond which the shlichus has ended. So over there, the shlichus is extant in that one piece until it's over, and then the subsequent pieces are not shlichus, right? But here, there's no such way of the dividing up, right?
That's what we're saying by the case of Elam, in fact, the shlichus does terminate after.
Right, shlichus does terminate after the first one, right? But it doesn't terminate prior to that. Here, the shlichus retroactively must terminate, or I don't know if retroactive is the right word, but must terminate by definition because there's no one on which we can say it works. Okay? So says Mar. Very interesting language here. What's the nafkamina? Meaning, can we at least derive something from Elah vis-a-vis our sugya? Right? Can we find something there which is relevant to us? Says Mar, yes. If you have in front of you two containers. One of which the shliach was misakin l'das the baal bayis. Another one which the shliach was not misakin l'das baal bayis. So the first one works even though the second one doesn't. Right? That's like where you have the two pieces of meat. All right, let's go back to Mishnah. Hamar b'truma. You see that? You did more than you have to. Blaze says you go up to 1/10 of your batch, like Trumas Meiser. 1/10 meaning 1/100th, right? Echom meaning 1/10 of the 1/10. So the max amount of truma you can make over 2% is an additional 1%. At 3% you max out. Okay, that's Rebbe Lezer's shita. I think I make a mistake. Sorry. I'm not sure to get up to 10%. 11%. No, it's just like Trumas Meiser is 1/10 of Meiser, he means. So to Truma Gedolah could be 1/10 of the entire thing. So you max out really at 10%, not 3%. Okay? You go up to 10%, just like Trumas Meiser is 10%. What if you took off, though, not 10%, you took off 15%? So what you took off afterwards, you have said a Trumas Meiser. It can't be Truma this batch, but you Trumas Meiser. Now I have in brackets Avalu Mokomacher. Do you have that?
I don't have any brackets.
Oh, you don't have them in brackets? Okay. But you have to make a Trumas Meiser on this batch, not on any other batch, which is what it's going to discuss. Rabbi Shmuel Mer, Mechta Chulin, Mechta Truma. You can go up to half Chulin, half Truma, which is what the Gemara called before Achas Kneged Achas. One on one. Okay? Time for Rabbi Akiva as long as there's some chalei shem chulin left, even a grain, the rest of it can be truma. Okay? Back to the Gemara. Rabbi Yerushalmi Rabbi Yochanan and Riyakob Rabbi Reish Lakish said, "Asir Rabbi Lezer Beis Shammai." Rabbi Lezer is going like Beis Shammai. Lezer said it's up to 1/10. Is going like Beis Shammai. How so? Gemara de Beis Shammai mukochim midumoyim. Just like Beis Shammai. Well. It's not that part of the statement, it's the other part of Rebbe Lezer's statement. The other part of the statement was that up to 10th is Truma, and the rest of it is Trumas Meiser. Over that. So that's why Beis Shammai said way back when in the first parak, that when you take a Truma from olives off of oil, even though on the oil part it doesn't work, on the olives themselves it is Truma. So it's automatically adjustable. That's basically what we're saying there, right? The adjustment is built in even without your specification. So to here, that they're Kodesh partially, so to Rebbe Lezer says that it automatically adjusts itself, that part of it is Truma and the rest of it is Trumas Meiser. Okay? So far so good? Now it's hard. The next passage is hard. I don't understand what's going on here. I'm going to learn it's like the Pnei Moshe. Although the Kavanoki gives a completely different shot. Totally different. Al daited Rabbi Yochanan Nicha. According to Rabbi Yochanan, it's good. Now, we're going to refer to Machlokes Rabbi Yochanan and Chizkiah. All the Mefarshim have a tremendously pitched battle here as to which Rabbi Yochanan and Chizkiah we're talking about. So for simplicity's sake, let's say we're going back to Machlokes Rabbi Yochanan and Chizkiah we learned earlier today. Rabbi Yochanan holds that when you have tevel and stuff which is already mesukon mixed together, you take a look back and just sort of show it to you inside. If you have you test them out. You test them at Aleph, right at the top, where we started today. Maikadon Shenitkan Ruba Shel Kri Plukta Der Chizkiah Rabbi Yochanan. Did Marishlo Shem Chizkiah Amar Tevel Bata Barov. Rabbi Yochanan Eina Tevel Bata Barov. Okay, so we have them those are the Tevels Bata Barov or not. So Daita Rabbi Yochanan holds Tevel is, I keep forgetting what he holds, not Bata Barov. So Echem Yasar Shabo Kidesh L'Shem Truma. Going Rabbi Lezer, 10% is Truma. Vashar and the rest of it Echem Yasara 1/10 is Trumas Meiser. Now Echem Yasara is meaning 1/100th, not 1/10 bana really, but 1/100th, right? So 10% is truma, 1% is trumas meiser. Okay, that's 11%, but he was mafresh more as truma, right? Vashar tovel meisers. The rest is tovel for meiser. In other words, the rest all of the truma is covered, but you haven't taken off any meiser yet, right? Therefore, you have to say the rest of it, whatever is left after the 11%, you make a trumas meiser. But you can't make a trumas meiser on anything else.
And then it says also on the frankincense, right? Then all of a sudden it says, well, you will not inform all this.
Yeah. Thing is, I don't understand how you make a trumas meiser not on something else.
And it says coal, and that's including all 15%.
Yeah, I picked 15% out of the hat, but yeah. So it says you should make a trumas meiser, but not on somewhere else.
All punishments actually, cars that. The ugly, so it says, wait a minute, that's true.
I'm not sure what that means now. Because what else are you going to do with it? You already got enough trumas meiser on this.
Right? Rashi?
I don't know. Maybe it just means basically there's nothing you can do with it. I mean, you're stuck. Right? The rest of it is trumas. The rest of it is true. The rest of it definitely it's truma. It's trumas meiser. And so yeah, but it's really in limbo. Ella. But this is really the question. I'll die to Chizkiah Kasha. According to Chizkiah's whole tables bata barov. Echad me'asor shebo kish shem truma. 1/10 is truma. V'ashar me'asor trumas meiser, and the next 11% is trumas meiser. Ashar, the rest of it, tevel tovel lakolu. The rest of it is tevel for all purposes, even for meiser. Utnina yasmi kan yasu trumas meiser, and it says that more than that is trumas meiser. Avalo mokamacher, but not on somewhere else. No, I talk because I understand it.
Because if you just wanted to use, literary.
Let's look at the Pnei Moshe together.
And he says the other thing, he's medactic that 6 of the times.
Wait, you change the gears here. Fum gate tzarich l'meim yeris v'kin yasu trumas alright, this is going back to Rabbi Yochanan. The fum gate tzarich hatzel l'meimar tzarich meimar yeris v'kan yasu trumas meiser v'lo makam acher. Gate tzarich marshakachin nusus chamas nisin dohacha. That's the Mishnah. V'murchim in yekusham. The kamar beid yaken leave the Chizkiah. And he's just proving that the gears is correct. Bashar B'Yochanan Nicha, who the Kamar Shehad Yasa Yosef Mashriba Alechem Yisrael Trumas Meiser, the rest of it is Trumas Meiser, Amash also Kri, She'asharu Tavel Meiser Rivad, the rest of it is just Tavel vis-a-vis Meiser. V'Yishakara Hashem Truma La Yosef Shebekri Atzmo, since you call Truma to that which is excess in the Kri, V'Nimtza Meduma Hu Ima Tavel, and it's Meduma with the Tavel. L'meiser, fichach yasen l'trumas meiser or love atzmo.
Which means there was 3 zugos.
Yeah. Lo makamacher, the shame. Oh, so he wants Rabbi Yochanan holds the rest of it is trumas meiser and it's not botel. But according to Chizkiah, it should be botel. Because he can't do anything with it. Oh, okay, that could work. So let's learn it that way. In other words, so according to Rabbi Yochanan, it's good that it says the rest of it is trumas meiser. It's not going anywhere because it can't be trumas meiser amokam acher, right? But it's trumas meiser unto itself, so it's in limbo. The other 3% in our case, right, or 4%.
it's a little because it's not. It is bottle.
Not according to Rabbi Yochanan. No. According to Rabbi Yochanan, it's not bottle. But that's a shiur. According to Rabbi Chizkiah, let it be bottle. Right? That's a shiur. So let the rest of it be tevel mamish. That's what I think it's saying here, okay? Alright, so let's do it over again. 1/10 of it is Kiddush Hashem Truma, the another 1% is Truma's Meiser. Vashar, and the rest is Tovel and Meiseris. The rest is Tovel vis-a-vis Meiser, right? Meaning that it retains the status of whatever of the Truma's Meiser having been taken off, and it's only Tovel vis-a-vis Meiser. From Kain Tzorch Meimar Yoser Mikan, therefore you say the rest of it, Yaser Truma's Meiser, V'lo Mokamacher. It made Truma's Meiser, but he can't really do it on Mokamacher. El Daiti, the Chizkiah Kashem, according to Chizkiah, it's difficult. Vashar, you can deal with. Vashar, but the rest of it should be Tevel Tovel Akoli. The rest of it should be Botel and Tevel. What goes over should be Botel again. If you can't do anything with it, so let it be Botel and Tevel. So Chizkiah Carter Tana Rebbe Chia. So Chizkiah goes like that, which Rebbe Chia says. Yes, mikanchi asener trumas meiser al mokamacher. The reason why it's not botel is because it's useful. You can't make it's useful. You can't make a trumas meiser on something else. In other words, when would I have to say it's botel if it reaches a dead end? But since it doesn't reach a dead end, so then it's not botel. I just make a trumas meiser on something else. Okay, that's not bad. I don't know if it's emes, but hey, it's nice. Fits. Right, Shmuel Meir B'chui. Do you have that header? My time there, Shmuel, you got? My was a little piece of Shmuel who says that he can be one-on-one. The Chsiv Reishis the Goncha. So Reishis and the Goncha. Ta'il Reishis Shekadogan. So they're linked to each other. Right? Reishis and Dogan be equivalent. Achi Shire Sham V'chulei. You have to leave one grain according to Rabbi Tarfon and Rabbi Akiva. Minayich Lo Soklum Achi Shire Mikvas. How do we know that? How you have to leave at least a little bit? Tamulomar Reishis V'lo Ko Reishis. It says Reishis and not all Reishis. No, it's right. May Reishis and not. Yeah, also he takes. I don't know why he takes out. But in any event, I guess Klapas there is no man. That's right. So Reishis means no. Plus there is no man. So Reishis Lo Ko Reishis. It's the only part. Right. No. It's not. No. That's what he takes it. Right, but he takes it out. So he learns that Reishis means the beginning, but not the end. That's how he's learning the Dosha. For low Kol Reishis. Kol can be considered to be Reishis. Okay. I think we'll stop here for tonight because it's already after 10:05. Even though he's still going on. We'll go. Let's start the Mishnah. B'shlosha prakim b'shaynis nah. Yeah, we'll stop here. Yisrael and perhaps even halacha. You look at what he writes on the on the top here, in the top right-hand corner. V'avshar ve'pamim. Even though many times where I put the brackets, Vada yobiyod minog. They had in their hands a minhag. Eich nogu b'inyan in whatever it's matter, what the minhag was, midor shekodmu from generations beforehand. Mikol makom nonetheless, ein lezeh eladin minhag. Even there's a minhag, it's only a minhag, v'lo din Torah sheba'al peh, and not clear Torah. V'ein somchin ala minhag, and that which rely on minhag is only el b'bchinas minhag in the level of minhag for lo b'geder halacha. It's not a halacha. V'av sharamu minhag Yisrael Torah. Even though we say minhag Yisrael is Torah, hainu Torah's minhag. It's the Torah of a minhag for lo b'chinas Torah's halacha. And if you're not, it's not halacha. You tell this over to some people, they'll think you're heretical, but that's the way it is. Torah is only that which is based on emes. That which is based on minhag, it's important, well, you should keep, but that is not on the level of Torah. One cannot confuse between the two. This is the correct explanation. In all matters of there's an argument whether it be in Chazal Rishonim, b'dvarim in matters shebechrei chayolam ezofen shayosim kain meos me'olam, where there must have been some mode of practice beforehand, forever, L'marshal, for instance, machlokas beisham beisil, machlokas beisham beisil betzoras erva. Whatever the case, it's quite a complicated case in Yevamos. We won't get into that right now. But the case which we're more familiar with, v'chein Rashi v'Rabbeinu Tam b'tfilin. The machlokas between Rashi and Rabbeinu Tam b'tfilin. Shebevada yor ofen shenogu kach dor dor. When Rabbeinu Tam was growing up, and he was right after Bar Mitzvah, before he formulated the Svar of Tefillin Rabbeinu Tam, he must have had a minhag. Right? What was the minhag he must have had? Rashi Tefillin. Right? What? Before Rashi, right? They must have worn Tefillin. Shavati Avamikem Shloi Solem Mesoretz Gemura, since they didn't have an absolute tradition Meduyekis, which was exact, Lefit Noya Dilkan Droshim, according to the level and the conditions of exactness which are necessary. Lo nechshav sel minhag, it's only considered minhag. V'alpi din Torah, and therefore the Torah requires us, yesh hechrech, there's a necessity, lo shuv, to return, ulevaris ani, and clarify the halacha, alpi darkei abirur, based on the avenues of clarification which we possess. Hatanoim v'amoroim b'darkei adroshos, based on the Tanoim and Amoraim, when their darkei adroshos mitorsh b'ksav, when they were able to make droshos directly from the Torah Shebiksav, directly from Scripture, Barishonim, such as Rashi Menotam, are pirayos based on proofs, Mishat Bavli Yerushalmi, from the Talmud, in the Bavli and Talmud Yerushalmi, Vod, etc. The Kavan shall be Birur Zayim is Barlam Hefech Hanog, and since, based on their clarification, it became clarified to them the exact opposite of that which was being Nog, they repudiated the minhag based on what they clarified the halacha to be, based on the parameters which the Torah paskin. A dayan has to paskin the way he sees it. It's interesting. I would like to see the footnote here in 1. With this is where explained Masha Matzano Be'inyan HaTzitz. That which he found the matter of the tzitz. You know, the tzitz was this little strip of gold, which went on the forehead of the Kohen Gadol and said on it, Kodesh LaShem. As Machlokes Chazal in Shabbos, Shalatana Kama, according to the first Tana, Kosovo love Kodesh LaShem B'shtei Shitim. Says holy to God on two lines, right? It said according to Tanakama, it said Kodesh on one line, and then on the line above it said Lashem, right? According to Tanakama. According to Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yossi said, I saw it. I saw the tzitz in Rome. The cost of Kodesh Lashem Shita Achas. And said Kodesh Lashem on one line, not on two lines one above the other. And halacha was paskin like Tanakama. But how can we paskin like Tanakama? Rabbi Eliezer says, I saw it. It was all one line. So what's the pshat? Lichor Tamur. How can we possibly the Sharei, Rabbi Eliezer, Rabbi Yossi, Eid Riyahaya? He was a witness, an eyewitness. Shalom Maisa Nagu Lichto B'Shita Achas, that was written in one line. El Abir Kanal, the explanation is like we said before. She'ein Bezek De Achriyas Halacha, that does not determine the halacha. V'kachu Kimat V'Perish V'Rambam Sham. It's almost explicit in Rambam that way. The Rambam says the halacha is making it in two lines. Sometimes he used to make it in one line, like B'Di'evet. But l'chatchila, of course, we go by Rabbanon, because according to the Klali Psak, it makes no difference if Rabbi Eliezer saw it. If the determination of the Rabbanon is to do it on two lines, we rechange it. Yeah. Why?
Saw it.
Right, but they did it wrong.
Who did it wrong?
The people who made the tzitz.
Was it made more than once?
Well, I guess it got worn out over time. It was made one, or it got lost. Like between Bayis Rishon and Bayis Sheni. So you make it over again. So Chazal, yeah, they made it wrong. Whoever made it wrong. Let's go on. The parameters of making these drushes, we don't have those anymore. That's what we're going to explain right now. And are very exacting, with the ultimate level of exactness. And they are absolute halacha, like all the halachas which are accepted at Sinai. And given over with the ultimate exactness. However, once we lost the exact definitions of the ways of learning Shalom and Beis Midos of the 32 Midos Shaltorni Dreshus Bohan, besides the Gimel Midos which are incorporated in davening. There are 32 other Midos which you will find at the end of Gemara Brachos. But we're not familiar with their applications. Although we know in general what they are, we don't know exactly how to apply them. And therefore, Ein Lon Rishus La'asos Drashos La'atzmeinu. When we lost familiarity with that, a door was closed in Jewish history. We no longer have direct halachic entree to Tanakh. In other words, we cannot go back to the Tanakh to rule on halachos, unless it's explicit, of course. But something which requires a drasha, in halacha we cannot make, because we're not familiar with the klolei hadrashos which Chazal used. We can no longer make drashas for ourselves, which we can use the halacha. And even though we might know the manner of drashos based on their prevalence, in the words of Chazal, maybe we can extrapolate from one matter to another matter. But even if the greatest genius in Torah, Yidrosh, will make a drosh al piyashvosa based on his comparisons, v'achros sichlo, and the conclusions which comes to in his mind, this cannot be taken in any aspect to be halacha. It's just intellectual discourse. And it's true, occasionally on its name, we're astounded. Lama samchu Chazal, why did Chazal rely kokach bevados, with such great certainty, perush echad b'drash hakosav shedarshu, on some sort of explanation in a drasha which they darshaned. Because based on our opinion, Hamikra, the scripture, Sova Kampish Machem, can sustain several other explanations. Avlabir who, but the pshat is, Shem Kiblus Aderech Hamduyekas, they received the exact manner, Ech Lidrosh Ufar Sheksuvim, how to darshan and explain psukim. V'rak Derech Zubivad Hi Halacha, only this way is Halacha, V'lo Adrachim Acheres, and not the other ways. I'm going to skip the next part, which I wanted to get to because it's getting late. Let's go back just to the next page, the final page, page 4. Just a little bit more of an explanation. I just wanted to just something which we mentioned before. I want to show it to you inside here, Reb Tzadok. The Reb Tzadok says here that's on the left-hand side, Malos Harbe Yesh. There are a lot of laudable levels and advantages which various people have over other people. They're all already acquired by the Gdolei Adoros v'Notlum, and they took them and they gave them over as inheritance to their children after them. In other words, there's certain things mystically which are genetic in Am Yisrael, such as we say Yisrael are Rachmanim, Baishanim, and Gomli Chasadim. Yisrael are merciful. That's a good translation. Baishan, they are what? Modest. Modest would be an approximate translation. It means literally they're ashamed, but it means that they're sensitive to things which should be modest about. V'gomli chasadim, and they are kind. So that comes from the avos, right? Avram was chesed, Yitzchak was gvura, which is also pachad, right, which is Baishonim, and Rachmanim is Yaakov. Rachmanim is a combination of chesed and din. From Rus? Why? Yeah. But not all Jews are related to could descend from Rus. So it has to be from the Avos. Right. So that's so it comes from the Avos, I believe. And then he goes on to say that how various different milos were given came to children as a result of their forefathers, and how certain families inherited certain traits. And then he says at the end of the paragraph, 4 lines on the bottom, v'chalukas hamishpachos hashvatim, the division of the families of the tribes Torah in the Torah, who kafi chalukas hamilos is based on the division of the advantages shezocha kol av, which every father merited for mishpacha for each family and family. V'nitlo zarachar, and he took it for his children afterwards. From this you have the division of the groupings in Am Yisrael, whether it be the Shvatim or the different countries with their different midos. Elu bali midozu, elu chavetim zu. These have this character and this have this character. He said, Michtam Eliyahu goes, he says in one place, we mentioned this once before, that you find the Litvischer Jews, they have a different temperament than the German Jews, and they both have a different temperament than the Hungarian Jews, and they all are different from the Sephardi Jews, and in each country a different derech of Avodas Hashem developed. In Lithuania they became Misnagdim, they were cold and analytical. In Russia they were hot-blooded, they became Hasidim, right? And in Hungary they became very zealous. What? And in Germany they became very exact and meticulous. And the Sephardim, they have their own derech avoda. Obviously, there are certain things that can be explained rationally and mystically at the same time, whichever approach you choose to employ. But since there's so many different traits and so many different characteristics by definition, there have to be different approaches. And it's not that one is more valid than the other, it's that all of them are equally valid. When everybody's thrown together, we have to choose one to use and to follow. But when different places, halacha kamar basrei, there are different things which can be true at the same time depending on the situation, time, place, and person involved. Okay, stop here.